I just want to make something super clear. Probably going to get me in trouble, but I'm already in trouble, so oh well. I just want to make it clear that statistically, just so people understand that there's not a race problem with cops, I want people to understand that as a white person, you are 20 times more likely to be killed by a cop than a black person. And the data is simple. So 6% of our population, that is black males, and this is just FBI crime statistics. I'm sorry if you don't like it, that's what the stats say. And this is, I'm going to try to present to you qualitative data and not just quantitative data like some people like to do to divide. They like to present quantitative data that just ignores the important variables. But 6% of our population, i.e. black males, 6 to 7%, commit 51% of violent crimes. In other words, 51% of dangerous encounters with cops are committed by black males, okay? 51% are committed by 6% of our population. Now, whites make up roughly 61% of our population. That is 10 times that of black males, okay? And that's just white people in general. I don't know the difference between white males, white females, but the statistic is that 6% of our population, black males, commit 51% of our violent crimes and are involved in 51% of our dangerous encounters with cops, because you commit a violent crime, you're going to jail. So the other 49%, which encompasses all races, so 60% of our population, which is white, commit less than 49% of violent crimes. In other words, 49% of dangerous encounters with cops, which means that whites, which is 10 times the population of that of black males, and that's not even including black females. We don't know how many percent of violent crimes are committed by black females. But 10 times the amount of black males is the white population, and they commit less than half or less than 49% of violent crimes. What that means is, as a white person, you are 10 times less likely to commit a violent crime and come into contact with a cop in that sort of a situation. 10 times less likely, yet twice as likely to be killed by the cops. Twice as likely, because cops know that if you kill a white person, nobody's going to stand up. I mean, unless there's some kind of like video evidence that just proves it, nobody's going to stand up. Nobody's going to care that a white guy just died, especially if it's a white criminal. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to even breathe a breath of care. It's not even going to enter into anyone's mind, probably won't even make the news. Nobody will care. However, a cop knows that if you shoot a black person, you better be dang sure, because even if you are dang sure, even if he's going to kill you if you don't kill him first, you still probably going to get in trouble. And so cops just do not want to shoot a black person for any reason. I mean, look at the world today. I mean, the black ladies that attacked this white woman that supposedly bumped into their daughter. I don't know if she did or not. But they wouldn't let her leave, like banging on her car. Like, in what situation does it just get so far that the person's like, look, I'm never going to get out of here if I don't do something, And so she threatened them, but she didn't hurt anybody or anything like that. She just wanted to get free, and yet they're in trouble. They're in jail. Now, the people that harassed them, not in jail, not in any trouble whatsoever. The people that stopped them from leaving, that's a crime, by the way. If somebody's trying to flee or to get to a place of safety and you block their path or ability to do so, that is a crime. That is a felony, okay? I had a buddy that almost went to prison because his wife was going to use the phone, and he took the phone and threw it, and they said that was blocking her ability to call for help, and it was a felony, and he almost went to prison. That is against the law. It is a felony. You can't do that. You cannot block somebody's ability to escape okay? Because that's false imprisonment, okay? You can't do that. It's illegal. Yet the white person, just because they're white and want to defend themselves, are the ones in jail, okay? Now, what people have to understand, and I'll tell this story. When I was in the military, we were sent to go get our bags or whatever. It's like the first day, okay? And so I'm going to go grab my bags, and there's a bustle. You know, there's like 80-something of us trying to get our bags. We're all rounded up together. And I kind of stepped back, and I bumped into a guy. I didn't see him. And so when I bumped into him, you know, I felt him hit my body, so I turned around to say, I'm sorry, you know, because usually you just look somebody in the face before you say you're sorry. But before I could, he said, say sorry, bitch. And I was like, well, now I'm not going to. You know, I was going to say sorry, but I'm not now. You know, you just ruined that opportunity. I wouldn't say sorry if you cut my throat now, you know. And he looked at me and he said, if we was in the hood, you'd be dead. And I said, well, then it's a good thing we ain't in the hood, isn't it? We're in boot camp. How you feel about that? You know, just like, I just thought that was, I guess, a clever thing to say at the time. Well, you said you'd kill me if we're in the hood, so good thing we're not in the hood. I didn't think nothing of it. Nothing of it. I'm like, you know, I've been threatened, you know, my whole life. You know, I've always been a polarizing individual. And, you know, people have always not liked me. It's not the first time somebody's threatened to kill me. Won't be the last. Probably wasn't even the 10th time somebody's threatened to kill me. But either way, I grew up in the hood, so it was like an everyday thing to threaten to kill you. So either way, I didn't take it seriously. About an hour later, I'm walking into my division. I get called into my chief's office, who is also black, Chief Weatherall. I hope this lady is very unhappy because she was the most racist, hateful person I've ever met in my whole life. Her and this guy named Wilson. They're standing in this room, and I look in there, and the guy named Wilson, who was the guy that I bumped into, apparently from New Orleans or whatever, he's crying, you know, like a little baby, crying. And I'm like, what the heck is he crying about? Like, this dude threatened to kill me. Like, if anyone should be crying, I should be crying. But I ain't freaking crying because I ain't no dang baby. Ain't no dang wussy. And so I'm looking at this chief, and I'm like, what the heck could go on? She said, I was told you were making racial slurs. I said, do what? And she said, I was told that you bumped into him and you refused to apologize and you started making fun of the hood. And I said, no, that ain't what happened. I said, I did bump into him. And before I could turn around and say I'm sorry, he said, say sorry, dude. I said, well, I ain't gonna say sorry now, you know. And then he said that if we were in the hood, he'd kill me. And so I told him, well, it's a good thing we're not in the hood then, right? You know, I didn't think anything of it. And she said, anybody witness this? And I said, there were a few people around. I'd go ask. So I went around and I asked everybody that was around, and, you know, I guess just the way military is, nobody wants to be involved in that. Nobody wants to be kicked out of the Navy. So nobody would stand up and say anything. So it was just me. It's just me versus Wilson. Nobody would defend Wilson. Nobody would defend me. And my word versus his. And so I get back in there and I said, well, nobody who was around seemed to hear it, but, you know, it's the truth. And she said, pack your bags. You're getting kicked out of the Navy. And I said, if you're kicking me out of the Navy, you pack my bags. And I walked out of that room and sat next to my bunk and waited. Nobody came. I never got kicked out. She scowled and was evil to me the whole time that I was in that division, but I never got kicked out because it was my word versus his. And I have a feeling that she talked to him and he kind of admitted, and she knew that they weren't going to win that case. But in any case, you know, I've experienced racism my whole life. I grew up in an all Hispanic town, and I was only me and my brother. There may have been a couple other white kids, but most of our lives, we were the extreme minority, like maybe 2% of the school. Very few white people in the school. And we were all picked on, beat up, made fun of, not popular at all. Okay, and I think I only had like one black friend in elementary school too. His name was Willie Johns. We were friends. I'll remember his name for the rest of my life. And he's like the only black kid in my school. But either way, you know, I grew up and that was the situation. And, you know, I ain't whining or crying or butthurt or running around screaming racism, trying to have problems and stuff. And what people need to understand is everybody's evil to everybody else at one point in their life. You know, people are always going to be evil and angry to each other, and you can't change that. There's outliers that exist in the world that are always going to be causing trouble. But what people need to understand is things are not just simply, you just state it to statistic and that's the way it is. And I know I went down a rabbit trail, but people need to understand that as a white person, you are 20 times more likely to be killed by a cop. And that's just showing that cops go out of their way, way out of their way, way out of their way to not have to harm a black person. And then to turn around and call them cops racist is the most wicked, evil thing to do. It's just a terrible thing to do. They go out of their way to not be racist, and then you still turn around and call them racist. And yes, there's probably a few racists that are cops, but you can't stop that. There's a few racists that are bankers. There's a few racists that are cowboys. There's a few racists that are race car drivers. There's a few racists that are anything, because people are allowed to believe what they want to believe. But they don't change your life. If you're walking around miserable, building your entire life around fighting 1 out of every 10,000 people, you're wasting your life. Like your entire existence is about fighting 1 in 10,000 people that exist in the world today. You are wasting your existence, and you're not going to do anything great with your life if you don't stop being a victim and start standing for the truth. And the fact is, if you're a white guy, you're 10 times more likely to die by the cops than a black guy, because cops don't want to be the dude that kills a black guy. Because if you kill a black guy as a cop, you better make sure you're right, because even if you're right, there's a good chance you're going to lose your job and go to prison. All right, you'll have a good one.